We have got some journalists in our audience, and now we want to answer some of their questions because there were so many questions, and now we clustered it into the most asked and highly frequently asked questions. So let's dive directly into it. And the first one goes to Andy. Do you offer also Club Sport package at the same time with basic version, and what does it contain?
As a matter of factly, this is a car used on track days a lot, and that's what the Club Sport package is made for. And historically, from the first GT3, we offered this Club Sport package, and so we'll do that again. And it consists of a roll cage, a rear part of a roll cage, and some 6-point belt harnesses, everything you know from the historical cars as well. So everything's included in the package, and the good news about that is it's a non-cost option.
That was the best part, so that was storytelling. Yeah, good one. Next question goes to Frank. What is the difference between the PDK of the new 911 GT3 and the Carrera models?
Well, for the GT3 we decided to keep the 7-speed with the direct ratios and had to adjust it a little bit to the wheel diameter, but we saved weight and thought that fits better to the characteristics of the GT3.
Next one goes to Jörg. I love that question. How much fun is it developing and test driving street cars like a GT3 compared to your racing career? Don't say anything wrong.
Obviously, as a race car driver, when you get in a street car, you have to lower your expectations. But on that car especially, I was shocked how good it is. It's really the grip level, the way it drives, how the balance is, it's so close to a race car, it's really, really impressive. So I enjoy it, and I think in the future it's only going to get better.
And I think I think that's the next challenge here. But I think one component is, of course, the rear wing. So let's talk about that. The rear wing of the new GT3 looks impressive. Could there be an even bit? It's really a question. Could there be an even bigger wing on a 911 anytime in the future, Andy?
I can imagine, yes. If we look at the RSR here behind us, it's got a bigger wing, so there's room for improvement, I would say. I wouldn't rule that out, yes.
So, next one, Frank. First of all, congrats on a great presentation. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Will you be able to offer customers paint to sample colors from the start, or will this be added later?
That was something I expected. Well, let me say, we learned our lessons. We are preparing a paint to sample. It will be immediately or very quick introduced in higher capacities than ever, if everything works out. So we're working on that. It will come by mid of the year. If everything works, keep the fingers crossed, but it looks very, very good.
And if someone is looking for a very special and individual color, I think Jörg has got the best color inside here. Maybe you can show. Yes, that would be exhausting on a GT3. So let's move on. But Jörg, on which sections of the Nordschleife did the new 911 GT3 improve most compared to the previous model?
That's a good question. I never drove the old car on the Nordschleife, to be honest. But where it impressed me the most was the high-speed sections. I think if you compare it to the previous GT3 RS, we are evenly matched now. And considering it being a GT3, I think that makes it even more impressive. So the high-speed was definitely very, very impressive.
And speaking of sound, we already heard in that video that sound engineering wasn't necessary. But yeah, we have to talk about that. How did you manage to maintain the typical GT3 sound with OPF in the exhaust, Andy?
Well, we didn't have to do so much things, to be perfectly frank. This engine has an inherent good sound, and you can't spoil it with whatever exhaust you're putting under the car. And you have to consider that on the predecessor we had 2 outer dampers and a damper in the middle. Now we are only having the center damper, and the particulate filters and the catalyst, they function kind of as a damper as well, and so we don't lose any noise. And even the back pressure is not so much bigger than it was before on the outgoing model.
Now I've got a very interesting question. I'm really looking forward to your answer, because this is, I think, the question of the questions. How does a car like the GT3 fit into the electrification plans of Porsche? Frank.
Ooh. That's interesting. It fits, from my perspective, very good, because it's still the DNA of Porsche, and we want to keep the DNA. And second is, we published that we are doing our research, and we have partners to look in the subject of synthetic fuels. What we see is definitely something what could help to reduce the CO2 emissions worldwide, especially for the existing fleet. We want to test this in Motorsport, and it also fits to GT3. We have no downside by using this kind of fuel. So that shows clearly that we trust in this technology.
That was a very diplomatic and good answer. And we move on with another very, very driving question in the audience. And that goes to Anni. Will the new GT3 be available with touring package again? If yes, when?
Well, we love the spoiler, but we love the touring package as well. And later that year, we have an idea if there's a touring package, yes. And I think we can confess here, a touring package will come out later that year. And it has been very successful, and we have found this new niche very interesting for us and for the customers. So clear yes to that answer.
And the people out there are sitting there like, whoo. So, good job. Last question goes to Frank. The naturally aspirated engine was applied here, keeping in line with the 911 GT3 ethos. But was a turbo engine ever considered for this new model?
Well, when we started with the concept of these cars, we always said we have to keep the normally aspirated engine as long as we ever could do, whatever it takes, whatever effort. So the second part was done, whatever it takes. So the effort was really huge and was a really difficult development, but we finally managed it. For sure, we talk turbo, but there's always a tricky discussion because we all love this normally. We love the turbos, but we also love the normally aspirated engines. So we'll see on the regulation and the emission side worldwide, because we are doing a world engine that fits from, let me say, South Korea to the US, from Saudi Arabia to Europe. It fulfills all emission regulations worldwide. That's very, very tricky. So we do our best to keep it live as long as we could.
So I think we could talk here for hours, but unfortunately we're at the end of our live stream. So I want to say massive thanks to all of you. Thanks for your insight, answers, and of course, thanks for this amazing new high-performance sport car.